Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm just wondering why my video is not coming on. It hasn't come on, has it?
We can
Mm-mm-mm.
see you all good.
Oh, you can. Okay. Okay. Anna, I think we're double Lucy. That's why. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. How are we all doing? How's your morning been? How has your morning been? How are we all doing? How is everybody? Say hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from. How is everything? How's your morning been? How's the weather in Madrid, Dallas? It's actually rather lovely in London today. I'm not going to get to see much of it because after this I'm straight into 5 back-to-back meetings, but the weather from the window looks rather lovely. Looks rather lovely. Hi, Samantha. Oh, 23 degrees. How very, very fabulous. Hi, Laura. Lovely to see everybody joining. Really great to be here with you this afternoon. Oh my goodness, we have got so much to cover. So much to cover. And I'm really excited to share some very practical tools and insights, actually. Over 600 of you signed up for today's session. It's clearly something that you are either understanding and want to know more about, intrigued about and know very little, or already really implementing some fantastic change in your organization around the culture, around building psychologically safe working environments. So I'd love to know where you're at. There's a reason you are all here today. Is it because you'd like to know more, know some, and would like some more insights, or really beginner stages of developing psychological safety or influencing psychological safety within your organizations? Would you mind just dropping that into the chat? Just drop that into the chat and let me know where you are at. What sort of stage are you looking for, where you know what you're at the moment? Okay, bit of a mix. And no experts yet, no experts yet. So if you are somebody that is an expert, then feel free to please share your own insights, your own lenses. One of the things I value most when we're running these sessions is interaction. And you are very, very welcome to ask questions, to challenge, to give your insights and your viewpoint. But I would encourage everybody just to speak from their own experience, not speak to others' experience. Really, really helpful. Okay, so keen to get going, I think. We have got a lot to cover. A lot to cover. Have I given everyone enough time to come on and join? I think so. I think so. You're all at different stages. Take what you need today. When I go into organizations and I give tailored workshops, keynotes, webinars, I do that from the foundation of knowing exactly what that organization needs for people to think, act, and feel after the session. Obviously, when I'm delivering a webinar, first of all, I don't essentially know who's going to turn up on the day. And secondly, I know you're all going to need very different things that we haven't had an opportunity to have a consultation on. So take what's useful for you today, leave the rest. I'm going to try and keep it very tool heavy today. So you have plenty to go back to your organizations with, plenty of food for thought, some really practical application tools to help build psychological safety in order that this time you're investing with me is really useful. Everything I've taken today to share with you are snapshots from half day, full day workshops that I run in organizations all over the UK and indeed the world. So it's hopefully going to give something for everyone. That's my aim, is that every single person here will have a couple of things that they can take away and immediately utilize in the organizations that you are in. A little about me. So I'm the founder of 2 different businesses, CNC Search, and we are executive support, so PAs, EAs, chief of staff, and HR people and talent specialist recruiters. Amazing team. Most of us have worked together now 10 plus years. Jodie and I, 24 years. And we deliver peace of mind to our clients through incredible rigor, as well as training and developing every single candidate we place. I'm also the founder of CNC Academy, which is a training platform designed to unlock potential so that people can think, act and feel infinitely for the better. And I deliver that online, I deliver that in person through my keynotes and workshops. And I have never had a busier year than this year. And the majority of my trainings are around communication, relationship management, and resilience. So if you need me, you are welcome to reach out. I absolutely adore the privilege of delivering those kind of transformational sessions and opportunities for organizations at all levels within a company. That's a little about me, but psychological safety is something I am intrigued with, I am fascinated by, and I have spent a lot of time studying. I am an ICF master coach, and of course, we do a lot of work as coaches. And in my coaching I coach everybody from FTSE CEOs right the way through to large management teams, and then additionally groups of support staff. So very big contrasting priorities and pressures. And creating psychological safety is important for all of those sessions. So it's something I'm genuinely fascinated by. What did I hear most in the last few weeks? Well, it went something like this. In my organization, we're really not so good at speaking up. What can I do? And the great news is, for everybody on this call, whether you are in charge or whether you're an individual, there is so much that you can do to impact the psychological safety. And I'm going to share with you as many of those tools as I possibly can today. And it does take work. I'm afraid there's no quick silver bullet. It does not require lots and lots or tens of thousands of investment in hugely complex and lengthy trainings. It's really about care and consistency and commitment. Your care, your consistency, your commitment to being part of the change needed. And oh my goodness, the impacts are just extraordinary. And having an inclusive, communicative environment and will make a colossal difference to how successful your team and your business is. And we're going to talk about some of that today. I am going to be keen to talk about leadership, but actually, you do not need an active leadership title to be a leader. You may, you're either leading yourself, or you're leading others, or you are leading upwards. But in all of these senses and all of these blocks of leadership here, you have the opportunity to influence psychological safety in all of these areas. And I'd just like you to highlight one or two of these, pop it in the chat. What's relevant to you? What are these building blocks of leading people where psychological safety is created that belong to you as a job that you do, as something you're responsible for? Will you just put in the chat, take a look here, pop in the chat for me what you believe is an area of your personal leadership responsibility, whether you have a formal leadership title or not. Yeah, so some of you, most of these, yeah. Okay. So most of you are noticing an opportunity for ownership around psychological safety already. And some of you have multiple areas where you can impact psychological safety, and some of you less so. But every single person that's contributing at the moment has a sense that they have an opportunity to influence psychological safety. Now, believe it or not, the management of things also has the capability to build psychological safety. And in policy, we also have the opportunity. So I'd like you just to have a look here. In policy, in process, in procedure, we too have the opportunity to influence and impact psychological safety. And the goal that we are working towards is to create an environment where your team, your employees feel deeply comfortable being themselves, expressing ideas, making mistakes without fear of judgment or retaliation. And creating psychological safety leads to this incredible capability to build communication, collaboration, innovation, massively impacts team effectiveness. And of course, leaders and managers and executives all have a huge role to play, but individually, we all have the capability to create change too. It matters hugely. Now you can look up colossal amount of statistics, you can look up a huge amount of psychological studies, you can look up Gallup surveys, but essentially I've encapsulated here, I think the three that matter most to clients that I work with, and perhaps this is the same for you, maybe it isn't, but certainly we know that teams operating with strong psychological safety can fail forward, they can innovate, they can challenge, they can drive change. And overcoming challenges absolutely requires a strong degree of psychological safety and disciplined learning practices. So you might just get a sense of the willingness to help in the organization that you're with. So yeah, your team, your teammates really believe that asking for help is appropriate and that their colleagues are going to be willing to provide it. Your teammates would have a really strong sense of belonging and that their diverse experience and subject matter expertise is valued. And there would be an attitude to risk and failure. Individuals would know that they can share ideas without being shot down in flames. They would know that they can try something new, that they can agitate for change. And you'd also notice in your teams and in the environment that you are in, that open, frank conversations are happening, that it's candid, that people can disagree well, and that they're not fearful or anxious to speak up if they notice an opportunity for improvement, or indeed they notice that there is something happening that needs flagging in the organization. So it enhances employees' engagement. And we know that when team members feel appreciated, they feel deeply respected, they see the value of their work, they feel accepted for who they are. And what happens is your team, as a result, performs better. Infinitely for the better. All of the statistics, all of the background research will tell you that psychological safety is one of the determining factors of success. Something we all need more of. That is for sure, especially in today's landscape. Now, if you've ever been to a leader, and I wonder in the group what your thoughts are on this, if you've been to a leader with some bad news or perhaps something that hasn't worked out and you've had a bad reaction, or you've been cut off in a meeting when you've tried to share a viewpoint, what happens? What happens? Share with me in the chat. What happens when you've had that response? And I can guarantee on this call, there will be plenty of you that have had that experience. I have no doubt about that at all. You shut down, knocks your confidence. You keep quiet, yep. You feel demoralized, you withdraw. Yeah, you close off. Yeah, you feel a sense of shame, don't you? If you speak up and you're shot down and told that that's absolutely invalid, essentially. You get angry. Yeah, I feel resentful. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to ask you a slightly different question now is, so when did you last not speak up and what did it cost the team? When did you last not speak up and what did it cost the team? Now, you might have had a very good reason for not speaking up because you were keeping yourself safe, but the cost commercially and for the human experience is colossal. Colossal. Now, we need psychologically safe teams because they take moderate risks, they voice opinions, they're creative, they're able to bring their full suite of skills without fear of judgment or being labeled in some way. And this feeling of being accepted, respected, and being able to share viewpoints and agitate for change without fear of negative consequences has massive impact for sense of self, for sense of status, for being valued. It's colossal. And thank you so much for sharing. So exactly, quiet quitting is one of the biggest indicators of a lack of psychological safety. That is absolutely true. Low morale, no trust, no trust. Now, one of the big misconceptions is that very psychologically safe environments are super comfortable, that these are really nice, cozy places to be, which are uber relaxed, but actually they are very different to that. Yes, there's deep trust, but actually deeply psychological safe teams are very clear on what's expected of them, very clear on what the standards are, very clear on their direction of travel and what their slice of the performance pie looks like. And they are courageous environments. So there's a comfortability in bringing your capability to work 100%, but it's not about a warm, cozy, nice, comfortable environment. It's about a courageous environment. And they are two different things. So as you've started to think about your own sense of the business you are currently running, the team you're currently developing, or the business you're working for, I wonder how many of you are aware that hearing no bad news, hearing no challenges is a real risk factor. This is definitely a problem. And if we are not hearing what is not right or what could be better, there is a massive risk to either external levels of service, internal levels of performance, the turnover within our business. We need to hear what is not right. That is pivotal. Sickness, yes, absolutely, Rob. We definitely see it in that. So is there a tolerance for mistakes, for getting things wrong, for seeing the learnings? Is some level of appropriate risk-taking encouraged? Are everyone's opinions equal? Is everyone's voice, where appropriate, being given equal levels of airtime, equal level of questioning? There's a lot of misunderstandings about psychological safety, and I wanted just to share this with you. So it is not about being nice all the time, and good leaders should be respected. They don't need to be liked. We have friendships and things like that. That's lovely if it's both, of course, but actually respect is so much more important in an environment that's functioning well than liking everybody. So it's not about being nice all the time. It's about being respectful and candid. So clear is kind. It's not about comfort. It's actually about an environment that's courageous and accountable. It's certainly not just HR's job. I don't know how many HR professionals are online here and have been given the sense that this is somehow a you problem to make sure is solved rather than a we problem. I don't know if anyone can concur with that. It's actually a shared responsibility across the board. There's a lot of, I think, myths that somehow having a lot of psychological safety means that you are not going to have an environment that's quick to make decisions. That's not true at all. It is an environment where we respond really positively to questions and doubts, where people truly believe their opinion does matter, and where we show appreciation for those that challenge and ask for clarification, that want a stronger sense of direction of travel. And one of the books that I really, really enjoyed, I think is interesting for anybody that likes to read, is Karlin Boryasenko. Zen Your Work, really interesting if you want to read a book that's by an organizational psychologist that you might enjoy, called Zen Your Work. And it is interesting in terms of, as an individual, just how much we can co-create psychological safety. And with much to cover today, I'm going to canter through some of these slides. So what are we looking to do? Well, we're looking to build psychological safety. As I said right at the very beginning, there's not a quick silver bullet. It's something that happens over time, just like trust. Trust is built over the time in droplets. And we want to start to look at how you personally can influence psychological safety, how you personally can encourage experimentation, how you can allow room for failing forwards, where all the lessons are learned and used to build better, and where you can both ask questions and model vulnerability appropriately. Where do you think you are at the moment? Where are you in sort of stages? Where are you in stages in this psychological safety, this chain of psychological safety? Timothy Clark's work is absolutely fantastic in this area. Where do you think you are? You in, you know, have you got sort of just one, or have you got 1 and 2? Have you got sort of right the way up to number 4? Where are you at? Let's just get a read of the room. A read of the room. Where are we? And it can vary. You can have the most incredible business. And if you think about Google, when they did the Aristotle Project, if you haven't looked at the Aristotle Project, it's one of the foundations of all of the most recent work on psychological safety has come from the Aristotle Project that Google conducted. Is absolutely take a look at that. But even within Google, they discovered that one team could feel psychologically safe and another could not. And sometimes 2 teams together would feel psychologically safe and then others coming together would not. So it's very nuanced, very, very nuanced. And some of you are alluding to that in the comments. Yeah. So I'd have a little look at the Aristotle Project, and I can share some resources additionally. Yeah. So how do we disagree well? How do we learn in our environments to disagree well? And I know that this is something that, I mean, I'm being asked into organizations all the time to deliver workshops on disagreeing well, on enhancing conscious communication. We are not taught to build that level of self-awareness, and in terms of owning our part and understanding how we can create connection when there is challenge. So self-awareness is where we have to begin with psychological safety. And when we are able to develop an environment where people can recognize how they prefer to think and behave, where we are uncovering our bias, we can then more deeply understand our lack of willingness to share viewpoints, or our forceful way that we share our viewpoints. So this self-awareness is where we need to start that tower, because it empowers us to understand our typical responses to changes or challenge. And with that knowledge, we can then start to adjust our emotional responses and learn to react in a way that creates connection, that opens up space for duality, different viewpoints, rather than a defended position. So there's loads of different ways you can start to build self-awareness in your team. 360 reviews, assessments, psychs, or coming to somebody like me that can support you with that. I think we underestimate the risk of paying or not paying enough attention to how we are co-creating psychological safety. When we look at some of the big airline disasters that happened as a result of people not speaking up, when we look at disengagement, burnout even, a complete miss and a blind spot in terms of innovation, it's a colossal risk to our organizations and to the responsibility that we have to each other. And feeling respected, seeing the value of our work in an organization, feeling accepted for who we are and what we have to bring and the unique strengths that we offer is genuinely transformational to the commercial results that drive as a result. So there's lots of different aspects and elements. And one of the interesting things that I find when I'm workshopping is that actually accountability is something that people don't necessarily want to talk about so much when it comes to psychological safety. And actually, a really great psychologically safe environment has very clear accountability. Everybody knows very much what their responsibility is and is very keen to ensure that they fulfill that, because they are part of a team that is very interdependent and has a sense of that safety that drives that accountability. Performance then comes as a result, and then we change and innovate as a result of that driver. So we start with trust, then accountability, then performance, and then change and innovation. And these is what you will start to see in teams that really focus on this. I know from running my own team, the transformation, because this has been a core focus of mine since coming out of COVID, has been extraordinary. In terms of the open forums, and are we perfect? Absolutely not. But we try and offer as many opportunities as possible to hear what needs to change, what needs to be better, to gain a deeper understanding of how each other work, and so on. Looking at the next step of the framework, so having a look at your opportunity within your organizations, would you just mind sharing, if you were willing to, where you think the biggest opportunity is within your team or organization, or for you personally to drive? What do you see here as being the core opportunity for you, your team, the organization as a whole? So you can share from any perspective. Nobody needs to know whether it's from you personally, whether it's for your team, whether it's for the business. Where do you feel? I think for me, where I'm really focusing at the moment is 3 and 5. How do we deeply embed a sense of openness to learning when things have gone wrong, real avoidance of blame, and also looking at how we embed those learning loops and team rituals. Team rituals are so important, so important. Yeah, nice. So lots of you are also with me around step 3. Interesting. Yeah, and a nice link there, Tracy, with the response to mistakes and accountability. You're absolutely right. The two are completely intertwined. Understanding differences from, yeah, Rob, I think that is also absolutely critical, but it's more about valuing the differences, isn't it? It's first acknowledging and knowing what they look like, and then having a deeper value system placed around what those differences are. Really nice reflections. Thank you so much for sharing those. It's really helpful. Here we go. So here's your first framework, if you would like to use it. Now, you can use this in meetings, and you can use it as an exercise within your team. And Karen, I really hear and acknowledge what you're saying there. And I think that the geopolitical climate, the economic climate, does make it more challenging. Hard to open up. And of course, the other thing is we've got the intention has to be for connection, doesn't it? It cannot be for correction. The intention has to be to connect people to the challenge at hand and how it might be solved, rather than, you know, we've decided we are horrified, offended, and determined to ensure somebody's sorry. I mean, that's just going to create disconnection. That's not psychological safety. It's about exploration, connection being the driver. But here is one of the ways that you could assess what's going on in your team. You can workshop this in a team or individuals. I can come into your team and support you with this. So we look first at inviting voices. So this might be in meetings. It might be that you're not yet ensuring that everyone speaks in a meeting. So asking everyone, what might I be missing? Response with curiosity over judgment. This is so critical. As soon as you hear the words, they are X, Y, Z, then we have shut down psychological safety immediately. Gossip is one of the key killers to psychological safety. So developing an environment where that's not a behavior that's tolerated, whether we look for questions over judgment, is absolutely critical. Building shared language, so really role modeling, asking for help, inviting in different perspectives, looking for what else might be true, exploration of an idea, and rewarding learning and not just results. So celebrating intelligent fail forwards, innovation, trying. So you may or may not be naturally inclined to check in with team members, see how they're doing. And we can do that at every level within an organization, but getting into that practice, especially with people that perhaps aren't just like you demonstrate that desire for open communication, for open challenge, and people are far more likely to speak up as a result of that. These are the ways that we can start now to contemplate in this very short time we have together today. How might I personally, drive this into everyday culture? Never, ever, ever underestimate your capability to create change as one person. Never underestimate. Look at Greta Thunberg, but your ability to agitate for change in a positive way, never underestimate it. Your interactions, the choice that we all make in terms of how we show up on a day-to-day basis has a gargantuan impact on organizations, on those around us, the energy in a team. So it could be as simple as you and another person, as you and a team is arriving at a solution or a conclusion, inviting in different questions, different viewpoints, considerations that have not yet been voiced. Count to 10 before you move on. So if you've asked a question no one yet has answered, count to 10. It allows shyer sharers a moment to calibrate and then offer up an opinion. So just notice that. Just notice that. Oh, Dallas, that's an interesting one. I'd love to hear everybody's views. So for me, if something like that happened, there's two different sorts of mistakes, isn't there? There's an error that occurs that is damaging to others, that's genuinely damaging to others. So perhaps they've gossiped behind their back or deliberately withheld something. That needs sanctions. Because as I point out here, culture is the worst behavior that we're willing to tolerate. But then there's other mistakes that genuinely happened by human error or by trying something new. So of course the reframe would be, how do we learn from this? What processes do we need to put in place to ensure this doesn't happen again? What checks and balances, what safety measures, what are the data points that we can take from this happening? That would be where I would go with that, Dallas. Because as I've just mentioned, some people are going to be super comfortable sharing thoughts in meetings. We all know who they are. Others are going to prefer to have time to think through their responses. For others, it might be quite anxiety inducing, especially if they've had negative experiences in life to date with speaking up and having a negative response to that. So you may provide different channels in those meetings. You know, you might look for an email. Sophie, I will share the recording. Of course, I will not be sharing the slides because unfortunately 3 weeks ago, a little while ago, I shared a load of slides that were then unfortunately used by a competitor in workshops. So I've stopped doing that, sadly, but I will absolutely share the recording. Of course, I will share the recording and delighted to do so. Rat packs happens all the time, Jill, I'm afraid. Thank you. So the sort of things that you can start to role model yourself is admit when you don't know. Ask someone for their view. Thank someone for challenging you. These are small ways that you can start to create change. So thanking people for their contributions, showing appreciation for their insights goes a long way. Just from what we've spoken about today and acknowledging the fact that I only have 20 minutes with you to share so much more information, what's one little behavior that you're noticing that you could role model that would increase safety within your team? Literally sort of this afternoon, tomorrow, what's something that you might, just from what we've picked up on so far, that you might be like, okay, that's something I can just start to bring in or focus on or be aware of? What are we considering? Yeah, some really nice reflections here. And humility, Amanda's touched on an amazing point there. Humility is very, very much part of psychologically safe environments. None of us have a crystal ball in the future. None of us know that for sure we are right or on the right path 100%. Yeah, some really, really nice reflections here. Yeah, curiosity, inviting an opinion, slow down. Yeah, offer up that space for people to bring in their viewpoints. Really lovely, really lovely. So trust is built in drops and lost in buckets. It feels terribly unfair, doesn't it? But we have to be aware that every droplet counts. How we show up, what we do, how we do it, when we do it, all matters. But remember, a psychologically safe environment allows us to make the mistake. It's not going to punish us for making a mistake. It enables us to say, I got that wrong, and for forgiveness to be part of the process. Yeah. So language matters. Do words matter in psychological safety? Yes, they do. And loads of cognitive studies have shown that using affirmative inclusive language completely changes our motivation to succeed. So really simple word changes like, we have not done it yet, rather than, oh, that's so annoying, we haven't achieved that, rather than can't, or using opportunity instead of the word challenge. There is many, many, many different ways that we can use language that drive more positive outcomes. I'm going to touch on some of the common pitfalls. Now, this is a very, very big topic, inclusive language. It's huge. So I would like just to share with you, just again, to spark some thoughts, some of the areas that are really good to be aware of. Gender neutral reference is really important. So walking into a room full of women or men and women, or those that identify as men and women, and saying, hey guys, very exclusive. Adapting for global teams, so not using localized slang, using people first language, so person living with rather than a person suffering with, and checking for understanding rather than assuming. Yeah, that's nice, Amanda. Folks instead of guys is a great way of working with that. There's tons of common pitfalls. Now, I've actually picked out the ones that have come up most from the workshops I have delivered when we've been looking at our own common pitfalls. So I don't know how much of these will resonate with you, but these were the common ones. And I wonder which ones make sense to you here. So unconscious bias in language, oh, like there's such a great working mom, or, oh, what a brilliant female leader. Talking about cultural fit, or perhaps exclusion through shortcuts, so all of the jargon, silencing or minimizing. I can still be guilty of this if I'm in a rush to get to Rome. What I mean by that is if I'm in a rush to get to outcome, I can still be guilty of cutting people off or saying yes, but, which is actually a way of immediately minimizing or dismissing someone's point of view. No blame, no shame. These are just opportunities for development. Yes, so Mandy, I use in all of my training, I bring in a squidgy toy, so that if you notice you're getting activated, just a couple of squeezes of the squishy stress ball or something like that, so that you can just keep yourself reading the room a little easier can be a good way of doing that. Oh, yes. Somebody says, no, 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 no. Ouch. Yes, absolutely. So using labels rather than observations. So the storytelling of people, they are so this, or they're lazy, or they're just not committed, etc., etc. So we have this opportunity with words to create big differences. And I am just going to share with you some of that. Oh, yes. I mean, yeah, Catherine, I mean, yeah, I don't know whether I want to get into Nigel Farage right now. Yeah, so here we go. Here we go. These are some of the ways that we can move from a pitfall into practicing and role modeling really good behavior. So instead of, guys, let's crush this, we can say, team, let's ensure this is a success together. We need a cultural fit. And I have to say, in the headhunting and recruitment side of my business, we hear that a lot. And actually, much better, we need someone who can collaborate across teams and adapt quickly. How much more impactful and inclusive is that, rather than we need a culture fit, which no one knows what the hell that means. No one really understands, apart from unless you go into the pub and you can see everybody looks pretty damn similar. Oh yes, that looks like a culture fit. It's not actually what helps organizations succeed. Calm down, you're overreacting, but instead observation. You know, I notice you seem upset. What is it you need right now? So we're looking to move from judgment to observation, from labels to needs, and from exclusion to inclusion. Here are some of the language I would invite you to let go of. Is anyone brave enough to look at one of these that they're going to own and let go of? And I am going to be serious with you guys. I just said the word guys. Wow, I am an imperfect student. Team online, I am going to be honest with you, which is that I have at times been guilty of saying things like, "There's such an amazing working mother." And I am intentionally going to focus on those. A bingo card for your next board meeting. Oh my goodness, that would be, Deborah, please share back. I would love to know what that looks like when you come out of that board meeting. Take a look. Take a look here and just use this as an invitation to do better. We can only do better when we know better, and we have to be compassionate to ourselves. We're still going to get things wrong. There's going to be missteps. That's okay, as long as we own it. As long as we own it. And I love these bits of honesty, like, yeah, I'm going to own this. I'm going to own this. Fabulous. Nice shares. Thank you so much. As we are running out of time, I'm going to get into some frameworks. All right. Can I just share some frameworks with you, if that's okay? I've created 5 steps of frameworks with you and some extra tools if I have time. I wanted to share with you. I've also shared with you by whom this has been inspired. So you can go away, if you're like me and absolutely love to do deep dives, you can go away and take a look at some of these theorists that I've included in these particular frameworks. To build psychological safety, your team members need to trust you and your word. So you need to be deeply mindful about the information you share and being very clear about your expectations and commitments. Be accurate, be realistic, and be thoughtful. Setting clear expectations and adhering to those commitments will absolutely ensure those around you develop a strong sense of trust built on those droplets and be far more open with you as a result. Here, I've shared with you the main principle being to shift from purely valuing outcome and performance to really moving, or proving, as I've written here, I meant to put moving, to one of learning and curiosity, that sense of innovating. And my goodness me, it will make a big difference. And running pre-mortems, hey, what might go wrong? what might go wrong? What can we do to mitigate that? And what if something does go wrong, what do we do with that? You know, how do we create a learning experience around that? The second is, you know, that we are human beings. We are hardwired for connection, belonging, and to feel seen and heard. Having a look at how we do that is deeply important. And, you know, your team members need time to transition. Others adapt very, very quickly. And you will only know that by asking your team members curious questions. And if expectations have changed or new information has been revealed or there's a new expectation or directive from above, getting very, very clear with what's changed and why, and giving your individual team members time to process, to share, check in, will then mean you can then work towards the stretch. I worked with an organization recently that was being very driven to deliver results, but there had been no context, there had been no check-ins, there'd been no processing. And as a result of that, people were deeply demotivated, withdrawing from wanting to participate, not delivering the results. So safety comes before the stretch. And failure can be really frightening. And owning our own mistakes, our own failures, and celebrating the opportunity to learn from them. It doesn't mean we celebrate making mistakes. It means we see what has happened objectively, and we look for the opportunity to learn and grow from them. Asking your team what they've done that hasn't quite worked out as expected and what they've learned from that experience is really critical to starting to develop some of those questions. So utilizing an opportunity in meetings to reinforce that behavior that people are safe to grow from mistakes enables your team just to know that they're not going to be punished. As a result, they're going to be far more comfortable exploring their fullest potential and speaking up as a result. Accountability is about learning, not fear. Critically so. Empathy and vision. Trust loops. These are critical. How can you do this? Well, one-to-ones. Listening, acknowledge, clarifying, empowering, model emotional regulation. So really staying in that neutral energy. Not getting involved in gossip, not being drawn into the drama, but observing, providing perspective, asking curious questions, staying regulated, connection first, always makes a massive difference. We mentioned right at the beginning, didn't we, that this wasn't about having tens of thousands of pounds to invest and change things. It was about having consistency, commitment, and creating routines and rituals in the business that make the difference. So it's a rhythm. It's every meeting, it's the touch points, it's the way you encourage disagreements and disagreeing well. It's so that people trust that challenge can occur, even conflict, and it will be okay. It will be that there is the possibility to have that supported and to work through it. Okay. So we started to look at a bit of a roadmap, haven't we? Started to build a little bit of a sense of, okay, I can see now how it's built. I can see the benefits. I can see how important the language is. And I'm starting to see how in the rhythm and the flow of a working week, just asking the right questions, being self-aware, inviting an opinion, role modeling behavior starts to create the capability to really drive change, And I really liked Kerry Ann's comment on this. Psychological safety is an absence of fear, but also an understanding that people might have completely different points of view to you, and it's okay for them to express that. Really important for the future of our organisation. As we become more diverse, it's more and more likely that people might not agree with everyone on every issue. Communication is king. We've looked at that at every aspect of today's presentation, every aspect. And there's so many ways that you can start to do that. And I've got a couple of other sort of tips and hints as we look to close off today. So an and-on cord mechanism. So this is where a team member would like to challenge safely, and it's literally they'd like to pull the cord. They'd like to be able to challenge an idea. And the theme was that during COVID and for remote teams, they'd actually hold up a piece of cord to the camera, and it'd be a really safe way. Everyone had a little piece of cord. It'd be a really safe way to challenge an idea. You could have a chatbot, you can have an emoji, you can have something that people pick up. I know that one of the companies I work with, they have the blue character from Sesame Street. I can't remember what his name is now. I think it's a him, the blue character in Sesame Street. Can anyone else remember who that is? Somebody else uses squeezy rubber chicken, Cookie Monster. Was it? Yes, okay. So you might have a bell to ring, but a way to encourage challenge is useful. You can use a rating scale survey. So employee surveys are a great tool. They're not the panacea, but traditional psychological safety assessments tend to focus solely on perceptions at the team level. And what you really want to do is considering asking questions that really measure employees' perceptions of psychological safety, both at work and within their team. So you may decide to use a pulse survey to ask the right questions, to ask whether your team feels they can share opinions, take risks, make mistakes. And when reviewing your results, focus at team level rather than within the organisation overall. That's really quite important. And it gives it's very, very valuable to have an understanding of psychological safety throughout your whole organisation. But any action that you take to improve psychological safety is actually most effective localised in teams. So I've given you loads of questions here that you might choose to ask in a survey. I love and I'm a huge fan of a social contract. Now, this is very much from a leader's perspective, but you simply change the you to how do we. What you can start with is getting a sense of what it looks like now. And then you get co-agreement. How do we behave in our team? How do we ensure everyone's included? How do we handle conflict? And what else is important to us? And everyone is involved. And as a result of everyone's involvement in a team is really useful, keeping it localized. The social contract becomes a ways of working. And that ways of working, again, allows something to anchor back to that ensures team safety. So this is this is a little checklist. This is a little checklist. And I'm sharing this with you, again, as an invitation for action. Nothing changes if nothing changes. What is calling to you here? What is calling to you here? Now, I've included be patient because so many teams that I work with want an immediate outcome. It takes time. It takes time. All right. I am going to give you now, as we rattle through to the end of you can see just how much there is to cover. I've only been able to take a snapshot of the work, and I am sharing with you now recommendations for best practice that have come from the teams I have worked with, that when we've gone back 6 months later is working well for them. take a quick look. So involve people in decisions, give work autonomy, lead by example, focus on progress over perfection, pay full attention when people speak, ask for and offer constructive feedback. Think about fairness and justice, not just in terms of outcomes, but in perception and process. Ensure that every employee feels respected. Mitigate biases where you can. Have an opportunity to give standpoints and arguments from all parties. Ensure leaders are aware of the stage of development of their team. Support team members through all stages of collaboration. Have team building initiatives. Keep track of trust and psychological safety levels through survey. Choose measures that reflect what's important. Approach the measurement of specific people's trustworthiness with great care. And when using measures, stick closely as possible. All right. My goodness me, we're just going to come to the close now. I wanted to highlight to you, so I ran in-person workshops this year. They've all been sold out. We're now booking for January and March next year. You can come and join me. It's the most incredible day. It's all about stakeholder impact and influence. I'm working with a big board at the moment. I work at all levels in organizations. So it's a lot about and touching on psychological safety, taking care of relationship management, developing communication practices, and having a project management map. So come and share that time with me if you'd like to. We'd love to have you there. I am very, very grateful for all of you coming today. Just as we start to sign off, would everyone be kind enough just to pop in the chat if they've got taken anything away? But I'm getting lots of thanks. I will take the thanks. Oh, best session you've attended in a long time. Amanda, thanks so much. I'm very, very grateful for you being here. Come and work with me again in whatever way you can, whatever capacity you can. Stay in touch. Very, very, very happy to work with you in a way that's useful to you and your organization. Thanks for being here, everyone. Thank you for being here. Really grateful. Glad it was so useful. Thank you. I will share the recording. 100% will share the recording. I'm really glad you all got so much out of it. Very pleased indeed. Very pleased indeed. All right, let me know if I can help in any other way. Otherwise, all that remains for me to say is take care of yourselves, have a wonderful rest of your day, and you all deserve to live and work in environments that are psychologically safe. Take care, everyone. Speak to you all very soon. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.